So let's just get into it. Toxic relationships. It's a big topic, right? And I think we've all either been in one, seen one up close, or maybe even been the toxic one at some point. It's one of those things that's way easier to spot from the outside. Like when it's someone else's situation, you're sitting there like, oh my God, why can't they see what's happening? But when it's you, man, it's like trying to read a book with the pages on fire. You just can't make sense of it in the moment. Let's start with what a toxic relationship even is. I mean, people throw the term around all the time, right? Toxic. It's almost lost its meaning because it's become so overused. Like someone disagrees with you, they're toxic. Someone sets a boundary, toxic. But no, that's not it. A toxic relationship is one where the dynamic is straight up unhealthy. It could be emotional manipulation, control, lack of respect, constant negativity. It's that feeling in your gut like something's just off here. And look, I think it's important to say this right away. No relationship is perfect. Everyone has disagreements, everyone has bad days, but the difference is in a healthy relationship, you fight fair. You communicate, you listen. In a toxic one, you're stuck in these cycles of blame, guilt, and drama that just suck the life out of you. It's like you're constantly trying to prove yourself, constantly walking on eggshells, or constantly apologizing for what? You don't even know half the time. I remember talking to a friend about this once. They were in this relationship where every little thing turned into a massive argument. Like they couldn't even decide on dinner without it spiraling into, you never care about what I want, or why are you always so selfish? And at first they thought, well, this is passion, right? This is what love looks like: fireworks, intensity, highs and lows. And honestly, that's what so many of us are taught, that love has to be this big, dramatic thing. But no, that's not love. That's just emotional whiplash. And here's the wild part. People don't always realize they're in a toxic relationship because it doesn't always start that way. In the beginning, it's usually great. The person's charming, attentive, maybe even overly so. You feel like you're on top of the world. But then over time, things start to shift. It's not like, bam, one day everything's bad. It's these small things that creep in. Maybe they start criticizing you a little, nothing too harsh, just subtle jabs. Or they make you feel guilty for spending time with friends or family. And you tell yourself, oh, they just care about me so much. But really, that's not care, that's control. One of the biggest red flags I've been guilty of ignoring this myself is when someone tries to isolate you. You know, like they get upset if you're hanging out with your friends too much, or they're constantly suspicious of what you're doing when you're not with them. At first, it might seem sweet, like, they just want to spend time with me. But over time, you realize, nah, they're just trying to keep you all to themselves. It's not about love, it's about power. Another thing people don't talk about enough is how toxic relationships mess with your head, like gaslighting. Let's talk about that for a second. Have you ever had someone make you feel like you're crazy for reacting to something that hurt you? You bring up a problem, and instead of addressing it, they turn it around on you. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're too sensitive or overreacting, and you start to doubt yourself, like maybe I am the problem, maybe I am too much, but you're not. You're just in a situation where someone's twisting things to avoid accountability. And can we talk about boundaries for a second? Because that's a word that gets thrown around a lot too. But in a toxic relationship, boundaries are almost non existent. Either they don't respect yours or they make you feel like you're wrong for having them. Like, say you need space. A healthy partner will be like, okay, I get it. Take your time. A toxic one, they'll guilt trip you. Why do you need space from me? Don't you love me anymore? And boom, you're questioning yourself again. But let me say this loud and clear: boundaries are not selfish. They're not walls to keep people out. They're guidelines for how you want to be treated. And if someone can't respect them, that's on them, not you. Now, I know what some people are probably thinking: why don't you just leave? And look, I get it. From the outside, it seems so simple. But when you're in it, it's not that easy. There's this thing called trauma bonding, where you get stuck in this cycle of highs and lows. The good times are so good that they make you forget the bad times. It's like gambling. You keep holding on, hoping for that jackpot moment, even though deep down You know it's probably not coming. And then there's the fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of what they'll do if you leave. Toxic relationships thrive on fear, and that's what keeps so many people stuck. But here's the thing, leaving is possible. It's hard, but it's possible. And it starts with recognizing your worth. You deserve love that feels safe, not love that feels like a constant battle. You deserve someone who lifts you up, not someone who tears you down. Also, therapy. Like, I can't stress this enough. Therapy is such a game changer. Whether you're in a toxic relationship, recovering from one, or just trying to figure out what healthy love looks like, having someone to talk to who isn't emotionally involved is so helpful. They can help you see patterns, understand why you stayed, and give you tools to move forward. And let's not forget about friends and family, because when you're in a toxic relationship, you tend to push those people away, either because your partner's made you feel like you have to or because you're embarrassed. But those are the people who love you unconditionally. Lean on them. They'll remind you of who you are outside of the relationship. I think one of the most important lessons I've learned is that it's okay to let go. Sometimes we hold on to toxic relationships because we feel like we've invested too much to walk away. But staying in something that's breaking you down isn't loyalty, it's self betrayal. So if you're listening to this right now and something I've said is hitting close to home, take a step back. Ask yourself, am I happy? Do I feel valued? Do I feel safe? And if the answer is no, maybe it's time to reevaluate because life's too short to spend it in a relationship that's hurting you more than it's helping you. All right. I feel like I've been ranting for a while now, but this is just something I feel so strongly about. If you're in a toxic relationship, know that you're not alone and there is a way out. It might not happen overnight, but it can happen. You deserve love, respect, and happiness. Don't settle for less.